Breaking news from yesterday was that the WNBA has told the WNBPA and its teams that a term sheet for a new CBA ought to be completed by March 10th for the 2026 schedule not to be impacted. So that is 2 weeks from today, you guys. And this is essentially the drop dead date that Adam Silver was referring to.
2 weeks. That's all the time left before the WNBA season could be thrown into uncertainty. March 10th is now the hard deadline to finalize a collective bargaining agreement term sheet. If that framework isn't in place, the consequences could ripple across the entire league. A lockout becomes a real possibility. The draft timeline could be disrupted. Free agency might turn into a rushed, chaotic scramble instead of a strategic, momentum-building period. The timing couldn't be worse. The league is riding unprecedented growth, record attendance, surging TV ratings, and an influx of new fans. Corporate partnerships are expanding. Media coverage is increasing. Star power is at an all-time high. And yet, behind the scenes, negotiations remain tense. The divide between player expectations and league proposals is still significant. Players are pushing for higher salaries, improved revenue sharing, and stronger long-term guarantees. Ownership groups are weighing sustainability, cost control, and financial structure. Neither side appears ready to concede major ground. If progress stalls, the damage won't just be logistical, it will be reputational. Momentum is fragile. A lockout now could stall growth at the very moment the WNBA is proving it belongs on the biggest stage.
Surprised that it's this late, because if I'm going to be totally honest, I would have predicted that the season is already going to start late. Even if a CBA was agreed upon today, I was under the assumption that there was far too much to get done in that amount of time. Yes, we still have 2 months before the WNBA season is supposed to start, but you still have 3 drafts to do, 2 expansion team drafts, and then obviously the WNBA draft, and then you have over 100 players who are free agents. So it's a lot.
Here's the strategic layer few are discussing. The WNBA set the March 10th CBA deadline just 1 day after announcing that players triggered revenue sharing for the first time in league history. That payout totals roughly $8 million, which averages to about $50,000 per player in bonuses. The sequencing feels intentional. By highlighting that milestone immediately before drawing a hard negotiation line, the league shifts the narrative. Instead of focusing on demands for expanded gross revenue sharing, the spotlight turns to proof that the current structure is already generating meaningful financial gains for players. It's a subtle but powerful message. The system is producing results. From the league's perspective, this is leverage. It reinforces the argument that stability fuels growth, and growth fuels bonuses. The implication is clear. Why risk a lockout or stalled momentum when the revenue pipeline has just started accelerating in players' favor?
10th is the day, you guys. Now, a lot of fans thought that the timing of this announcement was very interesting because 1 day prior to this, the news was shared that for the first time in history, the WNBA generated enough revenue in 2025 to trigger revenue sharing with its players, union leadership told ESPN on Sunday. So union leaders said that the league notified player leadership earlier this month that they hit the benchmark. The 13 teams will receive a total of $8 million from the league to disperse.
But let's break down what's actually being negotiated because the numbers are massive. The league's current proposal sets the team salary cap at $5.6 million. The Players Association is pushing for $9 million. That's a $3.5 million gap per franchise. Multiply that across 15 teams, including the 2 expansion franchises scheduled to join in 2026, and the difference balloons to roughly $52.5 million in additional salary commitments league-wide. That's not a minor adjustment. That's a structural financial shift. And importantly, the salary cap isn't even the core issue. The real tension centers on the revenue sharing model. Players want a system tied more directly to overall league growth, potentially gross revenue, while ownership remains cautious about long-term sustainability and cost control. So while the cap difference grabs headlines, the deeper battle is about how future success gets divided.
WNBA side. They come out with the news that the revenue sharing was triggered and the players will get paid, and then the very next day they drop a drop dead date. I think this is basically the league saying, like, look at this momentum that we have. You guys are actually able to get some of this revenue sharing. Like, you just made $50K that none of you guys were expecting. Do not halt this momentum. We need to get a deal done. Like, I feel like all of this is super, super calculated on.
The fundamental disagreement comes down to one word: structure. Gross revenue sharing means players receive a negotiated percentage of every dollar that enters the league before expenses are deducted. Net revenue sharing, by contrast, distributes money only after the league covers operating costs, travel, marketing, arena expenses, staffing, and other overhead. That distinction dramatically changes payout predictability and upside potential. In the NBA, players receive roughly 50% of gross basketball-related income. WNBA players, however, are reportedly seeking around 27% of gross revenue in the latest proposal, far below the NBA benchmark, but still a major structural shift from the current system. The league has resisted that change entirely. While ownership has reportedly offered concessions in areas like housing benefits and improved player support, they have drawn a firm line around moving to gross revenue sharing. From their perspective, net revenue protects financial stability. From the player's perspective, gross revenue ensures they participate directly in league growth. That philosophical divide, security versus scalability, is what's truly stalling progress.
Entire season, and we know that she is the face of the league. She's the biggest draw in the WNBA. Could you imagine if on top of that Caitlin Clark played every single game like she did during her rookie season? On top of that, in 2025 we had the Golden State Valkyries, who was a brand new expansion team. There was so much hype around them. They sold out every single home game. They sold a ton of merch. Like, the Golden State Valkyries exceeded everyone's expectations as their first year in the WNBA, and so it was huge.
Think about what 2025 represented for this league. Caitlin Clark's rookie season alone drove historic television ratings and attendance spikes. Even while she missed games due to injury, arenas sold out, road crowds surged, national broadcasts became appointment viewing. The momentum was undeniable. Then came expansion. The Golden State Valkyries entered the league and immediately sold out every home game, while merchandise demand exploded. For the first time ever, league-wide revenue benchmarks were strong enough to trigger revenue sharing. That wasn't symbolic, it was structural proof of growth. Now project forward to 2026. A fully healthy Clark for an entire season. 2 additional expansion franchises in Toronto and Portland, both reporting massive early ticket demand. Continued dominance from Aya Wilson, coming off another MVP-caliber championship run. The growth curve isn't flattening, it's accelerating. That's what makes the current labor standoff so consequential. The league isn't negotiating from stagnation. It's negotiating at a moment of explosive upward momentum.
Wilson, once again, coming off another MVP season and also a championship season. People are going to be tuned in to see what she's doing next. You have Paige Beckers, you have the new draft class coming in. There truly is so much momentum that I know I sound like a broken record. We don't want to see that halted. And I think by showing that, like, hey, 2025, like, look what you guys did in 2025, we could also do that in 2026. I do think that this was truly, truly strategic. It was also reported that the WNBA.
The league's stance is rooted in long-term sustainability. Ownership groups argue that the players' latest proposal, particularly the push for gross revenue sharing, could produce hundreds of millions of dollars in cumulative losses over time. From their perspective, locking in a fixed percentage of gross revenue before expenses are covered introduces financial risk the current business model isn't built to absorb. That's where framing becomes critical. Adam Silver has repeatedly suggested that this conversation shouldn't be viewed strictly as revenue sharing, but rather as a discussion about raising salaries as high as responsibly possible. That wording matters. It signals a philosophical boundary. Gross revenue sharing is likely off the table. Instead, the league appears willing to increase salary caps, enhance benefits, and expand support systems without restructuring the core financial model. In other words, ownership is offering growth within the existing framework, not a rewrite of it. The players see revenue acceleration and want structural participation in that upside. The league sees fragile margins and prioritizes controlled expansion. That tension defines the negotiation.
we're never doing that, so stop giving us proposals that even have that in it. We're not budging on that, and they are budging on other things. And so I don't really I think it's going to be either side calling each other's bluff, or one side completely conceding on everything that they have been standing on for the entirety of.
Here's where Mark Cuban enters the debate. He posted a detailed breakdown arguing that the WNBA's ownership structure itself may be limiting what's financially possible. As he outlined it, roughly 42% of the league is tied to the WNBA Players Association, about 40% is owned by the NBA, and the remaining share belongs to outside investors. His core point is that when so many stakeholders are splitting revenue and absorbing risk, implementing a clean NBA-style gross revenue sharing model becomes structurally complicated. Cuban's argument is that the current pie chart creates competing incentives. Investors want stability in return. The NBA wants sustainable growth. Players want a larger guaranteed share of expanding revenue. Trying to satisfy all three under the same framework makes dramatic restructuring difficult. His proposed alternative borrows from college athletics, a nil-style ecosystem where players significantly supplement base salaries through sponsors, donors, and independent partnerships. In that model, league payroll constraints matter less because star players generate personal revenue externally. It's a controversial idea, but it reframes the debate. Instead of fighting over a bigger slice of league revenue, expand the individual earning lanes around it.
With the new CBA, that should be something where some of these players are okay, there's max contract players now. I want to be a max contract player. I want to stay with the Indiana Fever. I want to stay with the New York Liberty. I want to be that franchise player for the Toronto Tempo. I don't like the fact that all of this is going to be rushed. However, I think all of it being rushed is still better than a season not happening at all, or a season being delayed, because we still only have around 40 games per season. At this point, I'm just kind of rambling, but that's pretty much the high level updates of everything that is going on in the WNBA CBA. Actually, I lied.
What makes Mark Cuban's argument especially relevant is the nil reality at the college level. Elite prospects are cashing in before they ever turn pro. Paige Bueckers, widely projected as the #1 pick in the 2025 draft, reportedly carries a nil valuation that exceeds what her rookie WNBA contract would pay. That creates an unusual incentive dynamic. For certain stars, entering the league could mean taking a pay cut. No other major U.S. professional league faces that imbalance. The NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL all offer compensation levels that clearly outpace amateur pathways. Turning pro in those sports almost always means a dramatic financial upgrade. The WNBA is different. Its growth is accelerating, but rookie-scale contracts remain modest compared to top-tier nil deals. That disconnect strengthens Cuban's broader point. If league-wide revenue sharing is structurally constrained, expanding external earning opportunities may be essential to keeping top talent incentivized to enter and stay in the league.
Obviously, as somebody who's very successful in business, he knows how to make money, he knows how to run a successful business. He's been working with the Mavs organization and working with the NBA for many, many years, so he kind of understands the back end of that as well. But I just thought that was interesting. Definitely, go check out his Twitter and read into that if you guys want to see his.
The March 10th deadline isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about time, and time is the one thing the WNBA doesn't have right now. Even if both sides reach a handshake agreement by March 10th, that doesn't mean basketball resumes immediately. As Adam Silver has acknowledged, a term sheet still has to be formalized by attorneys, reviewed, revised, and officially signed. That process can take a minimum of a week and often stretches longer. During that window, league business effectively freezes. No expansion drafts, no WNBA draft, no free agency signings, no training camps. More than 100 players are currently in free agency limbo, waiting to learn where they'll play next season. That's not a small administrative delay. That's a competitive bottleneck affecting nearly every franchise. Compare this to how expansion ideally works. The Golden State Valkyries had their foundational roster built months in advance. They spent the offseason creating chemistry, installing systems, developing branding campaigns, and building identity within their market. That runway matters. It allows coaches to evaluate personnel, marketing departments to craft narratives, and players to form relationships before games begin. Now contrast that with what the incoming expansion teams in Toronto and Portland are facing. If the CBA process drags even slightly, their rosters could be finalized just weeks before training camp. That puts them at a severe competitive disadvantage in year one. There's little time to establish cohesion, implement playbooks, or build community engagement around cornerstone players. Expansion is supposed to represent growth and excitement, not rushed improvisation. Free agency presents another layer of instability. Several agents and players have already floated the idea of signing one-year deals because of the compressed timeline and uncertainty around future economics. From a player's perspective, that strategy makes sense. Why lock into a long-term contract under an evolving financial structure? But for the league, that's problematic. Sustained growth depends on continuity. Rivalries require players to stay put long enough for narratives to form. Fans invest emotionally when they know a franchise star will be there for multiple seasons. Multi-year deals create stability in locker rooms and consistency in branding. A league built on one-year rentals becomes unpredictable and difficult to market. And then there's the on-court product. Training camps matter. Preseason matters. Repetition matters. Teams need time to install offensive systems, defensive schemes, and role clarity. Without that foundation, early season basketball can look disjointed. Miscommunications increase. Chemistry lacks. Execution suffers. That's dangerous in the current moment. The WNBA experienced a surge in attention in 2025, driven in large part by Caitlin Clark and other emerging stars. Casual fans who tuned in last season did so because the product was compelling and competitive. If they return for opening night and see sloppy, underprepared teams still learning basic rotations, some of that new audience could disappear. Retention is harder than acquisition. Broadcast partners are watching closely as well. Networks like ESPN and CBS have invested heavily in WNBA media rights. Their programming schedules and advertising commitments depend on reliable inventory. A delayed season, postponed games, or an outright work stoppage disrupts that ecosystem. Lost broadcasts mean lost ad revenue. That erodes trust in the league's operational consistency. From the player's standpoint, the frustration is understandable. They witnessed record attendance and ratings growth. They saw expansion fees rise. They saw sponsorship deals increase. They triggered revenue sharing for the first time under the current CBA structure. A $50,000 bonus per player is meaningful, but it's still a byproduct of an older framework. What players want is structural change. They don't want occasional bonuses tied to performance benchmarks. They want guaranteed participation in growth through gross revenue sharing, similar in principle, though not in percentage, to what NBA players receive. In their view, the league's upward trajectory justifies locking in a larger, predictable slice of future revenue now. Ownership views the situation differently. For most of its existence, the WNBA has operated at a loss, subsidized in part by the NBA. Even with the recent spike in interest, profitability remains fragile. Committing to gross revenue sharing while still navigating operating losses means guaranteeing payouts, even if revenue fluctuates downward. That's a significant financial risk, especially in a league still solidifying its long-term economic model. From ownership's perspective, raising salary caps under a net revenue structure offers growth without destabilization. The reported $5.6 million cap proposal would represent a dramatic increase from current levels. Add in full housing coverage and expanded benefits, and the immediate compensation package looks materially stronger than what players currently receive. The tension is philosophical as much as financial. Players see gross revenue sharing as fairness and alignment with other major professional leagues. Owners see net revenue sharing as prudence and sustainability, until consistent profitability is achieved. Both sides want the league to succeed. Both sides want salaries to rise. Both sides want long-term independence from NBA subsidies. They simply disagree on the mechanism. The March 10th deadline forces a binary decision. Either players accept that gross revenue sharing is not attainable in this cycle and negotiate aggressively within the net model, or they hold firm and risk a work stoppage that could stall or even reverse the league's momentum. If no agreement is reached, the most likely outcome is a lockout. Owners would prevent league activities from proceeding until a new CBA is signed. That halts drafts, free agency, training camps, and games. A player strike is less likely at this stage because there are no active games to strike from yet, but the practical result is similar: inactivity. Every day without resolution compresses the calendar further. Every week lost increases the risk that the season begins late, or not at all. In the worst-case scenario, 2026 could become a severely disrupted campaign. That's not just lost revenue. That's lost visibility in a hyper-competitive sports marketplace. And momentum, once lost, is difficult to regain. The irony is that this negotiation isn't about opposing goals. It's about timing and risk tolerance. Players believe gross revenue sharing is the long-term path to equality and stability. Ownership believes the league isn't yet financially mature enough to absorb that structure safely. So the central question becomes this: is gross revenue sharing a non-negotiable principle that must be secured now, or is it a long-term objective that can be phased in once the league proves consistent profitability? That's the strategic calculation facing players over the next 2 weeks. Under the current offer, they could secure substantial salary increases, improved benefits, and immediate quality of life upgrades. Or they can continue pushing for structural transformation, knowing the cost may be short-term disruption. There's no easy answer, but the calendar doesn't care about philosophical alignment. March 10th is coming, and whatever decision gets made, compromise or confrontation, will define the next chapter of the WNBA's growth. So what happens? Do both sides find a middle ground that preserves the season and sustains momentum? Or does this become a defining labor standoff that reshapes the league's trajectory? The clock is ticking,